Hey guys, it's Dan1. I just wanted to start a new video series to talk about kind of the history and the design behind Minion. I think it has kind of an interesting, progression in that Minion actually started off kind of in the PC game space, not as a card game at all. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that. So many of you probably know that I've been doing indie games for about 15 years. Just small titles, usually multiplayer. I made Survival back in 2001, which was kind of like a 2D Minecraft, way back before Minecraft ever existed. Kind of one of those like gather materials, hunt creatures, freeform building on the world. And that was a multiplayer game, really great. Had a great role-playing community. People would be bandits. There was like vandalization, and you could break into people's structures and stuff like that. And so people would form little cities and all this stuff. Really cool. Anyways, back on topic. So I've been doing these indie games for a long time, doing 2D games. So back in January of 2012, I actually was working on a new game. I'd been working on it for several months up to that point, but in January I finally started working on the combat system for the game. And so what I did was I wanted to find a turn-based combat system that was kind of innovative, Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior, those combat systems have kind of been worn out these days. There's RPG Maker games, which are great. A lot of those have kind of generic combat systems that are either based on just generic you take a turn, he takes a turn kind of thing, or some kind of ATB system like Final Fantasy. But I wanted to create something that had more strategic depth than that and, played a little more exciting and a little more innovative. And so I was coding different ideas, to try and cook up something that worked. Like maybe there was one idea where you had these elemental orbs, and different abilities would use up and generate elemental orbs. And so you'd like use this one ability as like a combo builder, and then you'd use another ability as like a finisher. And that was kind of cool, but the combat was really cyclical, and in a turn-based game, it didn't really work out. So I wound up iterating on the combat system many different times, and each time, I had to write a ton of code to be able to test the new concept. I have to add all the UI elements and all this kind of stuff to make it more workable. And so I kept iterating on it, and finally, at like the 7th or the 8th iteration, I got to this concept of having 3 action points per turn. And each turn they recharge, and you can spend 3 more action points. And then abilities cost anywhere from 1 to 3 action points. And so you could chain together, like a weak blinding effect with a strong single target hit, and like an AoE poison or something. And you could do, just different mixes and matches of that kind of thing each turn. Well, I wanted to iterate on it even more, but I was getting really tired of constantly recoding the combat engine, so I was looking for a way that I could iterate on that particular concept in a way that was much faster. So I started using a program called Magic Workstation, which a lot of Magic the Gathering players are probably familiar with. It allows you to play card games like Magic online. And so I used that, and I defined a deck of cards, which was actually all the abilities in the game. And then I would basically, use the cards to show, I'm using this ability, then this ability, then this ability. And I do, I had an Excel spreadsheet, and I do all the math and the calculations and all that stuff. And so I iterated on it like that. And it was about that point that I realized that, man, I could actually try to make a card game out of this. Cat, get out of the blinds, cat. Come on. So yeah, I decided that I was going to make a card game. I had no clue what I was doing, but I said I'm going to make a card game, and so I made an Excel spreadsheet. That's how it all started. I started with an Excel spreadsheet. I listed out the cards, And I knew in my mind that I wanted to make a card game that played like a CCG right out the gate, because I love CCGs. I've always loved them. I just don't love spending all my money on them. That's really the big thing that keeps me from getting really deep into something like Magic, is because I had a collection back when I was young, and it got left in the back of my friend's pickup truck, and it rained and ruined all my cards. So I lost a ton of money, and from that point on, I was like, man, I don't want to do this. I don't want to invest, hundreds, potentially thousands of dollars into a game. So I knew from the beginning I wanted it to play kind of like a CCG. And so I designed the cards in that kind of vein, with, an attack power, a health value, minions that you play out during the turn and they can attack. And then I wanted to give it kind of a different flavor than existing TCGs. And I wanted to figure out mechanics that were gonna suit the game very well. And so the original game of Minion, I actually produced, I want to say 100 cards, I believe, was the first printing. It was 100 cards. And what I did was I made an Excel spreadsheet that actually looked like cards. I'll see if I can find it while I'm talking, but it looked like cards, and you could actually print out that exact spreadsheet, and it would look, and like, then you had to cut up all the cards and all this stuff. Maybe I'll post some pictures of that, because I don't want to look. I'll be too distracted to talk. But yeah, so I cooked up these 100 cards, and then I printed them all out on some cardstock paper that I bought, just using my, just my desktop printer or whatever. And I took them all over, and I cut them with scissors by hand. Had to cut all the borders and cut each individual card out and all this stuff. And so finally I had a deck of 100 cards with this kind of flimsy cardstock, black and white, really boring, no art, no nothing. It was just like sentences on cards with like health values and stuff. And so I got my girlfriend at the time, now my fiance, Natalie. I'm like, Natalie, you got to try this game out with me. And she's really great. She's awesome. She always likes to support me and stuff. And I kind of have gotten her into gaming. She was never a gamer before. So we sat down at the table and we played the game, and it played remarkably well. It was a lot of the same concepts that are in the game today: minions, items, spells. I think that was it to start with. No, I did have enhancers. And so we played it out, and it was, some $3 to spend per turn, and each card cost $2. And you would just play cards, and you had a draw pile in the middle, and you would draw 2 cards per turn. And all of these numbers came up because I thought, I want to make a card game that's built off of one deck for every player. So I wanted all the cards to be unique, so that every draw was something interesting and something different that you would have to try and fit into your strategy. And I realized that with the $3 thing and spending or playing one or 2 cards per turn, because you'd play maybe a $1 card and then a $2 card, or sometimes 3 $1 cards, you'd be spending at least 2 cards on average per turn. So I knew that you had to be able to draw 2 cards per turn. I think our initial play tests, we started with 50 health, and she beat the snot out of me. Like, I had to explain the game mechanics to her, and she still won. Like, she just kicked my ass. And there was just some blatantly unbalanced things, like it was my first time doing something like this. And so, like, there's a spell that just did 10 damage. It was Classic Fireball. It's actually still on the set. It does 8 damage now, which is not that much less, but it's actually quite a bit less balance-wise. And I remember during those early playtests, the first 10 or so games, I think she actually won with Classic Fireball like 4 times, because she would just draw it every time. And it was just really interesting. And it's really funny to think of the whole reason why it's a card game now is because I got tired of programming. and I wanted to do something where I didn't have to program. I wanted to still make a game, you know. I mean, I wanted to initially I wanted to iterate on this combat system, and then I realized, like, man, I'm a little tired of programming right now. I mean, that's my profession as well. I'm a software engineer, and I want to make a game, and here's the perfect opportunity to make a game where if I want to specify a rule, instead of writing, you know, 3 class files with 200 lines of code and doing all this integration, instead I literally write a couple sentences and then I form the rules for the game. And that was really a great feeling. So yeah, that's a little bit about the history of Minion. You know, I hope to continue this series and be able to update with a lot more of how the prototypes fleshed out and how we wound up coming to certain design decisions, and, you know, how the game has evolved, what kinds of things did we try that didn't work, what kinds of things did work, and, you know, what kind of things do we want to do in the future, because I fully intend that Minion is not just a one-shot card game. I want it to be expandable, such that you can continue to buy expansions that focus on key mechanics, and you can mix those into your deck and really come up with kind of you know, an interesting game. And in the end, I imagine that people will be able to take the Minion deck and several expansions, put it all together, and then start to take out cards that they, you know, maybe they really don't like this card, or their play group hates this, you know. So I think Minion has a great future, and so I definitely want to continue to make more videos. So yeah, thanks for watching, and hope you enjoyed. Please like down below, and definitely share with your friends if you enjoyed the video. So thanks for watching.